Okay, so I'm Sylvia. I was just saying I'm a drawing teacher. My background is drawing, fine art, painting and drawing. I did an MA in drawing, and I've worked on drawing modules and degrees and things like that. So if you're interested in illustration or fine art, drawing or painting, or mixing the two, then that's obviously an area you can contact me and I can talk to you about. I've worked across disciplines, so I've worked in all sorts of industries really, and I think that's what's quite nice about working as somebody who does work across disciplines, is that you can sort of get an interest in, for example, like architectural drawing, or drawing for design, or drawing for ideas, or drawing for all sorts of disciplines. And when I talk about disciplines, I mean things, architecture is a discipline, painting is a discipline, sculpture is a discipline. And you'll find that drawing is really the key to all of these things. And drawing from life is really, really important. It's something that means, if you're drawing from direct observation, for example, if students are not drawing from direct observation, I can see that straight away. Just to recap, drawing from direct observation is really, really key. And what I was saying is how I can see, cat fight in the background there. What I can see is if somebody isn't drawing from direct observation, there's a real issue there with the sort of tightness with the drawing, and there's not that sort of energy to it. It has a different, or if they're working from photos. Now I know that we had a talk earlier on about, not with me, but with one of the other lecturers, about research and primary and secondary research. And primary research really is key at this level, at all levels really in art and design. I mean, even on level 2, we really get you to draw from observation. But when we're working at foundation, and also when you go on to degree level, you really want to get as much information as possible. So I used to live in London, and there you'd often see very famous artists and designers, quite a few fashion designers, for example, going around Kew Gardens, around the Princess of Wales Conservatory, or one of the other conservatories, where they're looking at plant forms, really interesting structures and shapes. That kind of thing can really inspire fashion illustration, or drawing or painting, whatever, whatever your discipline. I mentioned about disciplines earlier on, whatever your subject area. So you'd often see these artists and professional artists and designers going out and sourcing information. When we say the sources, we're talking about primary and secondary sources, it being primary source being from direct observation, and secondary source being from, for example, a photo that you've taken from, or that you found in a magazine or a book, and so forth. Really, at this level, you want as much information as possible. So I'm slightly distracted because I think I've got somebody else, another notification. Not sure what that is though. Anybody else waiting in the lobby, perhaps? We shall see. Hopefully not. So yeah, that direct observation, working from a primary source, really, really key. And you can take a sketchbook with you. I was talking to a student just a minute ago, actually, in a meeting, saying that it's really important that you just take every minute really for your drawing. So if you've got half an hour to spare, you might be thinking, oh, I haven't got time to do any work. You might say it in that kind of voice, I don't know. I haven't got time to do my foundation work. But actually, even in half an hour, you can create a really beautiful drawing. You could sit there and just be with pen and paper, or be prepared to have those kind of moments. So for example, I'm going to spin my camera around in a minute, if I can work out how to do that on here. For example, I worked on some drawings. I was just sat at the table one day, just doing some little drawings. I'd had some plants that I was working from. They were on the table rather. I wasn't working from them, but I just had a couple of biros, and I thought, okay, I'm going to start drawing. And then I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the technique. Initially, I'm going to show you this because this is an idea, the kind of thing that you can do. I'm going to see if I can spin myself around. I don't know whether I can. Bear with me here. So this was, I had this sketchbook, and initially I just did this drawing just in biro. I've actually just stuck this onto here because I just did it on a back of an envelope or something, I think, because like I said, I was doodling and I quite liked that process. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get my sketchbook out and I'm going to stick that onto my sketchbook, and then I did another drawing just in biro. I quite like the way it's breaking away, or how, obviously I was doing that, deciding that to eliminate parts, and that's the kind of thing that you do when you're just drawing. And then from that I thought, okay, I quite like working with biros. Actually, I had all these colored biros, so I worked a little bit more on that idea, and then I had some other grasses, but these were kind of doodles for me. They're kind of like little drawings that I was doing. Again, I quite like this kind of broken away element for me. I was not putting the whole thing in, I need to put the whole thing in. And then I started working on some grasses too, and I thought, oh, the biro kind of lends itself a little bit to sort of that delicate mark. Yeah, so thinking which sort of marks or pens or media you're going to use as well can make a difference. And so I started to get this feathery kind of effect with the biro. Yeah, so I'm kind of going with that idea again. Now we're going to work with objects that are out in front of us. So I'm just sat in the garden at the moment, try not to be eaten by mosquitoes, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm going to just spin around. I'm going to show you the kind of themes that I've got here. I've got quite a lot going on here. How do I select something? You might think, oh, so much going on, where do I start? And this is where I want you to sort of follow the process of where I would start. I would start to, if I was working on a foundation project, I'd start possibly by selecting certain plant forms and structures and going from that. So, especially if I think I might be going to fashion or graphics or just using it as reference, I want you to look at the lovely, and I'll post some up on the general chat here, lovely drawings of Van Gogh and his mark making. Absolutely stunning. We think of Van Gogh as sunflowers, but his drawings were beautiful, or still are beautiful. And it's a quality of mark making, and that's something that you can really explore too, creating different textures for different forms, and that's really going to help you with your work. Okay, so I'm going to spin the camera around again and I'm going to start drawing. Okay, so stick with me. Have I got any more notifications? I've got somebody, guest waiting, view lobby. I've got some more people, admit all. Oh no, there we go. Okay, so I think that's everybody here now. So I'm going to spin the camera around. I probably won't see now if anybody else joins, so this will be recorded anyway. Okay, so you can look at it. Okay, so I'm going to just hold the camera up nice and high, and get some pens. Just bear with me a minute while I prepare myself. I've come out with a little toolkit here, and I'm going to start off. If I'm not sure, I'd probably start off maybe in using a rotary pencil. I'm going to look at, like I said before, there's a big scene here. There's scene, but I want to gather information. And how I might start is just literally using a rotary pencil here to gather information on my forms. Like I said, those of you that have come in a little bit late, I said working from primary source is really key. You see things differently in primary source than you would in secondary, from secondary sources. Sort of play on light, things like that. You don't get that obviously with a photograph. Once it's taken, it's just got that light source. Obviously, once you're drawing, you've got various light sources. Okay, so I might start working with pencil. If I'm sort of slightly unsure of how to start, I maybe start with pencil, because going in with pen can be a little bit daunting, but it can be beautiful too, even if you're unsure of your mark making. Don't let that hold you back. We got a nice straight angle there with the camera. So I'm just looking at these lovely structural forms. And to be honest with you, if you're going to architecture or anything like that too, you could think actually some lovely structures that you can get from nature that are a starting point. Okay, so I've started that. Now, in order to make that a little bit stronger, sketching for sort of ideas too, I might sort of start to block that in with a little bit of cross hatching, just to give it a bit of form. I find it very difficult to talk and draw at the same time. That's because we're literally working on a different side of the brain. I'm just doing what we call a rational line here, quite loose drawing to start with. And then you can start to go in a little bit more. I tend to go a little bit too heavy with these rotary pencils. You can start to get the shade. I'm going in a different direction now. Maybe we can zoom in a little bit more of the picture. Yeah, it's better. So we can see what's going on there a bit more. If I'm working with tone, I might decide, okay, I'm just going to this is quite a structural shape. So working with a bit of cross hatching and tone is actually quite nice. I'm drawing from like I don't know whether we'll spin it around again in a minute for those of you that came in late. There's quite I'm not sat here with a plant in front of me, but I'm sat here with like a whole garden and orchard in front of me at the moment. So it's really difficult to, unless you need to sort of use your eyes a bit like a camera lens. Zooming in and out. I'm playing around with the play on light and dark there. Going in there a little bit, getting that shape in. It was quite therapeutic watching people draw and paint, isn't it? Depending who it is, of course. And a little bit more tone here. So I'm going to build this up. And again, I don't know where this is taking me. I mean, this is the thing. I don't know where these ideas or these drawings from life will take me. But until you do them, you don't, do you? I mean, it's all part of a journey. And one shouldn't sit there and think, oh, what should I draw? Really, necessarily. You just think, okay, it's just like I said, that little doodle that I did earlier on, start to go somewhere. Well, I might do something with it in the future. I might not. I don't know. It might go into one of my paintings or drawings. It might not. But until you do them, you don't know, do you? You don't know what's around the corner with anything in life. But with art, it's about the journey of doing the work. Okay, so I'm building up this background here. This is quite strong here. And I get some darker forms in. And if we're working three-dimensionally, we really want to, if we're working with form, somebody who goes into sculpture, for example, really want to make sure you've got some nice sort of drawings that sort of reflect the three-dimensional quality. And when I say that's, it's the same also with obviously if you're going to architecture and things like that too. So again, I'm building up that cross hatching. Still life, we've got artists like Miranda who did some fantastic etchings with cross hatching too. Again, I can put a link onto that just to give you some ideas of where you can go with it. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that and actually start to look at what I'm just fine liners. I can pick a variety of fine liners. So you can play around with the qualities of line. I've got a brush pen there. I've got a thicker pen here as well. I've got a fine liner, really fine, and another one too. So all these different qualities of fine liners really that you want to work with. And you might start to build up your drawings using fine liners too. So this is much stronger and bolder. So this is just a quick little demo on fine liners. Again, working from life. I'm going to start to look at shapes. I'm going to start with a fine pen, so fine I don't know whether you can see that on the camera, and I'm just squiggling in shapes, looking at different forms. So you might begin to fill up a page. If you're working on the one of the projects, like in the pathway, we've got a project from above and below, looking at decay and textures and layers. It might be that you go out and you start to collect information from life for this project. Now you can see when you start to work in fine line, it's much stronger, much bolder. Like I say, I quite like just going straight in with those biro works. I went straight in, and you can start to get the form of shapes by looking at the shapes, drawing the shapes as you're taking the line for a walk. That's a good bit of research. Find out who said that. You can ping it back to me. Who said taking the line for a walk? And you can start to build up your drawings and your shapes. Working the positive and the negative. Looking at the negative shapes. That's the shapes in between, to help you identify what the shapes are. And starting to go into just doodling, perhaps doodling in shapes, working out the layers. This is some kind of bushy plant. It gets you get ideas from this. If things you could turn into fashion garments, perhaps textures that you could look at for materials, textures that could go onto fabrics or could go onto a repeat pattern. What else? Elements that you could use in your paintings. All sorts of things, yeah. So it's really important that you draw from observation to start to generate your ideas. And when you're drawing, also, following the shape. So if you were working with a mountain scene or something like that, you can look at the shape of the mountains. You can, those of you that might go into concept art, you can take a rock even and draw the shape of the rock, following the contours, and using that as your inspiration. Yeah. All these kind of things create ideas. Yeah. So it's really just building up your work. If I were to do that in a line, I'm just going to show you quickly in a line here. If I'm going to go straight into pen and form, literally not taking my pen off the paper. This creates a really beautiful, I took it off then, to say I'm not taking it off, beautiful shape that you can, again, like I say, use for different elements in your project work. And you can see working with pen is much more, if you're confident with your line, it's much more stronger than going in with a pencil, and also a little bit quicker, to be honest with you, because you're going directly. What you have to do is, Matisse was great at this, working with these intersecting lines. So the line where it touches here, you stop. Touches there, you stop. And that then creates a confident, there's no crossover of line. I'm just going to just finish this little bit here, and then we'll shortly finish. Oh, see, there's I've crossed over. It has a sort of hesitant there. If you want to, you can make that a little bit thicker. And then you can go over with some of those lines to make them a little bit thicker and bolder, to give a bit of weight to your work as well. Intersecting line. I'll go with that one there. And just building up these random weird sort of lovely forms. And again, like I say, you can turn these into designs for all sorts of things. Okay, so the intersecting line becomes quite a strong sort of structure, and you can start to think, do I turn things upside down? How do I work with them? And so forth. How do I use them? If you had in your sketchbook a whole load of drawings like this, I mean, this is what been 20 minutes of drawing, you could start to build up other forms as well, and just start to build up your sketchbook full of research. So don't limit yourself with thinking, oh, I haven't got time, or I'll do that when I have got time. Just, get your sketchbook out, carry it around with you, do some drawing, start to build up all these shapes. I'm going to start to put a link up for you as well for artists that have worked with interesting marks and textures. And I'm filling this page up with drawings. So I'm just every gap filling up with something. I want the little things floating around in places. I'm going to start to use this as a body of work. Looking at different forms now. I'm speeding up a bit my process. Beginning to take around with me all the information, plants that are around here with this confident line. And like I say, you can play around with different qualities of line as well. So your pens, have a go at exploring different options, and just show you where there's one of the cats. So I was taking plants from over in the distance there. So it's deciding on selecting the information and deciding on what you're going to be putting in your sketchbook. Okay, so really important just to use your sketchbook as a tool to generate ideas. So do get in touch with me if you have any questions about drawing or anything like that. Like I said, I'll put some links up for drawing from life that you can look at. You can look at the lovely work of various artists. I'll put some links up and images up for you to look at. Okay, think about that intersecting line. David Hockney also did some great figure work with intersecting lines. Matisse. So do look at that as an option. It creates a strength of line when you're drawing. Okay, it creates a quality that's a little bit different than the sort of sketchy lines. Can be nice too, but it's just a different kind of mood. Okay, and then from that you can start experimenting with backgrounds, start playing around with ideas, start being a bit more experimental with grounds, and that's something I can give a demo on as well at some point. Okay, happy drawing, and I shall see you soon. Okay, bye.